Yay, and welcome back to the Witches and Bitches Summit, y'all. Wow. So if somebody was asking me, so how's the summit going? And I'm just like, it's so activating and transformative and super powerful. Like, wow, just wow. I don't know how y'all are feeling right now. I'm going to remind you to go ahead and click everyone in the chat so I can see your comments and everybody can see your comments. But holy moly, this has been amazing. And I love how we've been touched. It's like, it's almost like you're bringing us through a whole journey, in the mind, in the body, in my pockets, in my womb, like we're just going everywhere. And right now we're back to reclaiming your body with Maya and Allie. And just a quick little intro of these beautiful women. I mean, y'all color coordinated and everything. And I love to see it.
We didn't even plan.
Did you plan it or no?
No.
See?
One line.
Yes, you guys are doing it. It's amazing. So Allison Yanni is a craniosacral therapist. She's a spiritual mentor and a medical intuitive dedicated to the physical and spiritual growth of her clients. And she specializes in trauma. That's super important. Everybody write her name down. Everybody. Immunodysfunction, disease, chronic pain, obstetrics, pediatrics, and women's health. Super important. And we also have Maya Weber Hipskind. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. LCSW Somatic Healer. And you're going to have to explain to people what a somatic healer is, just in case you don't know. Hypnotherapist and a registered yoga teacher. And she works with clients and families with various mental health conditions, survivals of sexual trauma, exploitation, grief, and complex trauma. You guys are like, I know, it's a lot. And like, oh my gosh. And talk about, I don't know if y'all plan this because it's on the first day of Scorpio season, but like, it's like all these lessons, everything we're talking about is just so apropos. Like, just like, and the fact that you both deal in trauma specifically, I want to, first of all, just honor the both of you. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world, because it is so necessary, just so necessary. I see so many people, women, grown-ass people whose childhood trauma still continues to affect them. Any type of, like every day in their businesses, in their relationships, in their friendships, it just shows up. And the fact that you're doing this work so that people can just show, like, to be more fully themselves and to help them heal, like, oh my gosh, again, thank you. Hi, this is my life. Oh.
Ooh, yeah, I was gonna say, so this is our life, right?
Yeah.
Like the way I look at what I do is I am holding the lantern and walking you through the underworld. Right? You do your work, but I walk with you. I'll hold the light. I'll hold you while you do your work. But you got to go down. And you got to go deep.
Que fuerte. I'm going to go and hop off video and let y'all do your thing. Please do teach us how to reclaim our bodies, women.
All right. Yeah. Well, okay. So we got our intro, right? So we both do different forms of somatic body work. And that's really about getting you in your body, feeling what's present and releasing it, right? Whether it's from this timeline or another timeline. And first, I just want to acknowledge, like, it's really deep and profound work, and it's very sacred.
Yeah, it's I think that there's a heaviness to it. Like, when at least for me, when I introduce myself in a conversation, they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, no, I promise it can be heavy, but there's a lot of empowerment in it. There's a lot of transmutation that gets witnessed, and growth, and if you're so connected to the work that you do, like I think me and Allie are, which a lot of healers in this community are, you also grow and feel within your client's aspect and space, and it's very transformative for yourself even. So I love what I do.
Yeah, and there's a lightness to it, because our role is to love you and love you and love you in the process.
Yeah.
So in that place, all right, what does reclaiming the body mean to you? We're going to tell you our experience, and I want you guys to put it in the chat. Yeah. All right, you start.
Okay, so when Allie and I were talking about this question, this was one of those questions. Oh, I mean, it is the question of the day for us, but I think I spent a little bit of time contemplating because I think there's so many facets to answer this question. And I think the number one thing for me in my work and in my experience with my own clients is the definition of reclaiming your body is being able to not only walk through this world in recognition of triggers, in recognitions of traumas, in recognition of places and stages of stuckness, and understanding that there is this enveloping happening for us in that moment where we can kind of choose where we want to send our power, if that makes sense. And so I can't change the world and the elements around me because I don't have control of those things. And so there needs to be some sort of acceptance to come forward for me to say, okay, I can really awaken to this feeling that's going on, no matter how uncomfortable and undesirable it can be. And I think in that, when I felt that for myself, I felt strong because I was like, excuse my language, fuck it. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like, I can go through this experience and it be hard, but at the same time, I could really find the power that I need to kind of like step forward and say, okay, this is where I need to kind of set my mind frame. And this is where my emotional body lays. This is where everything else is kind of doing and stuff. And that's what it's like for me.
I love that. Love that. So every time I answer this question, it's a little different.
Always.
Because, right? It's like the sweetness of the moment. So when I tap in right now, reclaiming the body means to have my heart fully open and be fully present. And that means to release everything from the past that is defined, whatever, however I used to show up, and not let it interfere with this current moment. Reclaiming the body means to have sovereignty in this form, in this body at this time, right? So we have our history and we have our events from growing up. Even from a year ago, we all had our stuff come up, right? But is it affecting you now? Is the stuff coming up getting cleared? And do you feel free in your body? In the reclaiming, it's like, this is mine. I choose this time. I choose this body, and working with it moment to moment to moment.
Absolutely. I think the number one thing that came forward for me right now when you're saying that is the sovereignty of choice. And for me, you know, one of my specialties that I've kind of, I don't want to say fallen into, but one of the things that I've dedicated my last few years of my life to is sexual trauma. And I think one of those, that specific trauma in my mind is so deprecating because you're literally taking away someone's choice for this space of just ultimate power. You know, when we talk about sexuality, and we will in a few moments, but when we talk about sexuality and the idea, and then all of a sudden there's a forcefulness attributed to it, it's a recipe for disaster. And so I think that when we're able to kind of have sovereign choice over our body
and reclaim,
that is a sense of freedom for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with how to get moments get even stuck in the body. How does the body hold things? So the way I always speak about it is the body is a book. And the body is a collection of stories and experiences that we kind of implant into the body without even recognizing it, right? So we can have an experience where there's a trauma response or shock or a belief that's made up in the moment. When we don't complete the thought, the experience, and release it, what happens is it begins to encapsulate, vibrates, and gets implanted in the body. And so that shows up as like pain, heart palpitations, responses that don't feel like they mix together, like something happens and then the behavior, the reaction is opposite or to an extreme. And really what's happening is there's an encapsulation and it's put into an organ, the connective tissue, the mind. I mean, the things that show up. When there's an imbalance in the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So, right, there's fight, flight, rest, digest, freeze. And now we're starting to talk about the fawn aspect, which is like the people pleasing when shit hits the fan, pardon my French. Right. So that's part of it.
And I think when we had this conversation too, like what you were explaining, things kind of get stuck, like the way that we kind of like related it to and kind of made it like obvious is like, if we think to ourselves, okay, what would it be like to wear a Velcro suit all day? All of the things that kind of stick to you, because this body that we carry is the connector to our collective. Like I'm not seen as Maya's personality. I'm seen because I have this short hair, I'm this height, I'm this figure, right? You recognize me on the street as being Maya because of this body. So this is the connector between me and the collective.
Right.
And so if I think about it in that way, all of the things that get stuck to my Velcro suit throughout the day, sometimes Velcro is really hard to take off, guys. You need to use your fingernails, right? So you get down in there and rip that shit out. And so if that's like a literal kind of like comparison, we can really kind of say, holy crap, like there's a lot of things that can get stuck to my gross relation to this world, which is this physical body. And it's only the outside, guys. Like, what about everything that's underneath there? Yeah. And that's what you were saying, how this nervous system can kind of get affected. That's where we come up with disease. That's where we come up with chronic pain.
Right. So in a moment, there's a belief, right? Like something happens, you create a belief. That belief starts to run you, but also we start collecting evidence of it. Yeah. And then we start having dysfunction in the body. Like things aren't working the way that they used to. Yeah. Or if we take the Velcro suit, right? It's like we're constantly rubbing up against each other's wounds and it just becomes messy and really dirty. And the whole thing is like, can we get to where these places are in the body and start to access like what's the origin story of whatever the dysfunction is, right? Whether it's autoimmune stuff or anxiety or pain or just this reoccurring thought that you just can't shake. Can we get in there and grab it from the root and pull it up? Like the the expression that I've been sharing in the office lately is like, you can sit there and like pluck the leaves off a plant, but you're not solving the problem until you really tap down and down and down. And like, what are you collecting information about?
Well, and I think in our line of work too, we, a lot of the times can come across souls and individuals that don't even recognize that first part. So there's like that numbness, right? Where we don't even know, like we're not even awakened to the fact that there is something imbalanced here. The world might notice, right? And might tell you in all of these various ways, but there's like this absence.
Right.
You know?
Right. And so this is an interesting thing for all of you to look at is sometimes even in meditation, like you'll drop into your body and then think, oh, there's not that much. But then all of a sudden you're getting flashes and images of the day and the day before and the week, not realizing that the body has taken a snapshot of something. And then we think, oh, but that really significant. Well, apparently it was because you took a freeze frame and you implanted it. So when we start to realize what information are we taking in, what are we releasing? Are we fully releasing things out of our body?
And I think it's, you know, for me, it's more about release because everything that our eyes look at, guys, your brain remembers. Every single thing that you will see in this lifetime, your brain will remember, and it filters it. So everything that you experience in your sensory kind of ability and in your functioning, your brain kind of just decides, okay, I'm not going to remember this, but it's still in my filing cabinet. So how is that little section of my filing cabinet getting in the way of my functioning right now? And if I don't see that, if there's numbness, I won't ever go that deep.
Right. So here's the next thing. How do you know you're having a dialogue with the body? And do you know how? Yeah. And what's the language of this body, right? Because part of reclaiming the body is being able to do the call and response. Like your body tightens. Did you notice? Did you notice that you were holding your breath? Did you notice you woke up with pain in your shoulder? Right? This is part of the dialogue is the body usually whispers and then it yells. And then when it yells and you're still not responding, it smacks you in the face.
And this is my favorite thing to talk about. I love this. So this goes into defining what a somatic healer is. So somatic meaning
of the body,
right? Soma, responses in the body. And the most obvious examples that I kind of give people are like when we feel sad, we cry, or when we feel happy, we can even cry, right? So there's this somatic response that the body is showing the world, basically. So there's that in-between stage between the thought happening in my brain versus me showing you what's going on and kind of relating to my experience in that sort of way. But there is so much happening in our processing and in our mind, in our emotional body all the time that we're not aware of. We've already established that, right? And so all of these things get stuck in places in the body because when we think of the concept of the mind, it's not fair to just attribute that to the brain. The mind lives in the rest of the body.
Right.
So when we go through things, it gets stuck in the muscles, and the muscles kind of get stuck in this kind of memory whirl loop, right? So we can transmute and change our thought pattern, but then we forget that our muscles are still there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I have conversations like this and I say, well, wait a second, your body doesn't speak English.
Right, doesn't
like
speak language.
Language, I should
Talking.
say. Yeah, talking, right? Like your muscles don't speak the language that your brain speaks. So I can't just tell my body certain things that I can have conversations with in my mind. It just doesn't make sense. And so that's that gap between me being able to contextualize things in my brain and understand them versus me acting in a certain way in accordance to those things, right? And so we have to kind of understand the somatic response that's going on that Ali was just talking about, you were just talking about, at the same time, kind of like outlining and transmuting, okay, these thought patterns and what's going on within my language in my mind, what's going on with the patterns that I'm kind of like living with and the people that I surround myself with.
Right. You may not even realize like all of a sudden, like an actual verbal response comes out more hostile than you mean to in some moments. And it's like, okay, so there were cues that were showing up that maybe you didn't have access to, right? And I really want to come back to what are a couple of these. And these are like clenching in the jaw.
Yeah.
Holding the breath, tightening the belly. When do you exhale? When do you feel safe in your body? And when do you feel like you should be hiding? Like the brain is literally like, get out of here. This is not safe.
And there have been literal moments where my chest like collapses. Like, I don't know about you, but like my chest and my back will like
so round, the shoulders
and I get shorter, you know, and I'm like, wait, what's wrong here?
So those are a few aspects of like how we can start to listen to the body. So start to listen to those responses, but also like tune into the texture of things. It seems kind of strange for like, if you don't normally do it, but like everyone, I want to request, like, put your hand on your heart.
Yeah.
And breathe into it. Like, what does it physically feel like under your hand right now? Does it feel tight? Does it feel open? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel like you can't feel it? Like you're trying and it's just like, oh, like, don't make me do this. Right? Deidre mentioned, I never breathe. That's a body response. Tighten, hold, controlled, but like everything we go back to is like, is it an expression of love or is it an expression of fear? And none of it is wrong. It's like just whatever's present in the moment, right? No make wrong in it. But can we like start to understand the density and the texture that we hold? Because then you start to say, oh, well, I don't know what's going on in my hip right now, but it feels different than it normally does. And that's in that body awareness that you start to feel these different textures.
And I think that the conversation can get complicated when we talk about trauma. You know, that's both of our realms in our world. And I think that we have to be very cognizant and aware that all of these layers, right, come with different intensities. And we are not always on the same layer. We're not always open and ready to receive the next level of intensity, right? And so when we talk about trauma, what's closely related is like survival, right? And survival modes in the body, if that makes sense. So really kind of going back, if this sounds familiar, right? If there's a numbness and there's like, oh, there's also multiple events that I can think of that I would probably label as traumatic, right? Or maybe I've newly discovered this, then there has to be this aspect of like almost forgiveness, right? Can I go back there and not be upset at myself that I don't know what it feels like to feel my heartbeat, really, even if I have my hand here, because maybe I'm just so nervous and scared about that, what that will turn into, because I've needed to survive here for so long.
Yeah. And that's how survival is, right? We protect in the moment, but if we don't return to kind of go down the rabbit hole and unwind what's in the body and have an emotional release or have any kind of release, honestly, because the body, one form of release is emotions, the other form is like body shaking, and it could feel like low grade vibrations or pops, like the body will actually pop, and that's part of the nervous system resetting. But what happens with trauma often is like we get stuck in this high sympathetic nervous system state where it doesn't really matter what's happening. Like we haven't fully dropped into that healing aspect. So that's why doing somatic work, whether it's, working with someone like us who is, really intently working with the body to release the trauma, or if it's you're doing breath work or you're doing yoga, but you're doing it mindfully, like you're really like investigating what's in here, and then you revisit it after class. Because it's in the getting complete that it actually exits the body.
Yeah, so there's that purposefulness to it.
Yeah.
And I think the variation of release will also depend on where you're at that day. Like we were not the same person that we were yesterday. So I can find myself really excited in my healing journey. Like, oh my God, I'm getting somewhere. I'm releasing. This feels great. It's really hard, but I feel myself going somewhere. And then the next day we wake up and we're like super avoidant.
Yeah. And so that's where the forgiveness comes in, right? Like the kindness and the gentleness in your healing journey is really important, really important. And I think part of honestly what's happened like in the last month is I've been getting new clients in the office who come in, they fill out all the intake paperwork, and I do straight up trauma intake. And I've received a lot of feedback of like, I'm doing great. I don't have any of this stuff. And then they get on the table and they're like, oh no. Oh no, this thing, I didn't realize it was a thing. And so what happens is a lot of times is like, there are microaggressions that we experience that we do to ourselves. Like Mari was talking about boundaries, right? But and Alicia too, right? So when boundaries are crossed and we don't say anything, it's a microaggression against ourselves. Then we're collecting evidence of why we're not worthy, we're not safe, we can't be in this body. When do I get to go home?
And then it just perpetuates the cycle. So you're stuck there because you're justifying the original thought pattern. So it's like what you said, we as human beings unconsciously we look for evidence in things, right? But we feel safer when we have labels, when we have explanations to things. It's a very humanistic kind of experience, right? And so all of those things kind of create these spaces of confusion sometimes. So I think it's really difficult, and it could be very easy for us to turn off. And I think that you're right. We need to forgive ourselves, because yesterday was yesterday. Today is today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is the perfect segue into, let me just tell you that growth can feel like utter chaos. Growth can feel like chaos. Okay.
And it's supposed to, honestly, in my opinion, if growth doesn't feel like it's fucking hard, it's a mess.
Messy is probably the best word, because what happens is it's like you're just burning it all to the ground. Finally being who you say you're going to be. Oh crap, what have I done? Right. And with that, it's like all the emotions, almost feeling like you're being too sensitive, or every single thing is a trigger. And what I really want to bring up is anything that's happening in the body in these growth moments are so perfect, because they're also guidance, right? Where can you lean into the discomfort and be like, it's really uncomfortable right now, but guess what? Next month it won't be.
And I think too, when we are in these moments, right, it doesn't matter what the situation looks like, the emotional kind of impact that I can have can feel very similar to different events in my life. So
they're reminders, right?
Exactly.
And then there's a fear response.
But it could be a good thing, because then I can prepare myself. Okay, so I can't change this. I can't change the way that this feels for myself. I can't change the circumstance that created this feeling. But now I know what it feels like. And within that, there's an extreme sense of power and confidence.
Yeah.
That now I know what this is like. Now I know the texture of it. Now I know the complexities of it. Now I know what to expect, right? How long it's going to take maybe, and how long I need to kind of recuperate from it. So even though I can't change it, there's a way for me to transmute the way that I enter into it, right?
Yeah. Right. And part of that whole collecting evidence thing is, okay, I got butterflies in my stomach. Oh, I'm a little nervous to do this thing. Where else did I have that experience? And I overcame it. Okay, now I remember that past experience. Now, can I bring that into my body, right? This whole aspect of embodiment, like, can I take it, breathe into it, live into it, and know that, like, I'm good. I'm on the right path. This is momentary. Like, this is just a momentary disruption. I'm safe in my body. Safe in my body. And I think that's a huge part of reclaiming the body, is like, I chose this body. I mean, the joke is like, I am the tiniest giant person there is.
Yes.
I'm really little, but I'm huge. And I chose a small body because it's fast. And I really do work like the wind, and it's freaking amazing. So, I mean, like, everybody has a version of this. Like, what do you love the most about your body? One, what do you not give your body enough credit for?
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And that can be a hard question to answer, is depending on what stage you are in this recognition process. So going back to the forgiveness stage, we have all been in the moment where we don't know what the fuck is going on, where we don't know what's happening here. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what this is about.
Yeah.
But maybe tomorrow can feel a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the empowerment aspect of that too is to remember every single person who has a body, who has emotions, who has experiences, who lives with other people, who lives as part of the collective, has experienced this on one form or the other, right? So we know that it is possible to get through these moments. It's just, like you said, very uncomfortable. But if we can be there and lay in it and find some sort of solace in the labeling of our experience, it's like we almost kind of relinquish control. Like, okay, I can feel safe here. I can feel safe now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, like, I love how the summit, they're crossing over, right? So if you caught Ilona's session, right? Language is powerful. So can you reprogram pain to discomfort? Can you reprogram grief to transition? Like, what can we do that brings us back to, like, I'm going to alter the always known experience, and let me just see if I can kind of soften the edges so that I can be present, right? So even like slight modifications of, like, the language is a vibration that is happening in the body and its cells are vibrating out this thing. Can we just kind of like tweak it a little bit so it's comfortable to be here?
Yeah. And I think also, like, sometimes it's hard for me, like, for me personally too, like, I'll be like elevated and I'm like frazzled, right? But one of the things that helps for me is like, what am I paying attention to really intensely? Like the traffic, how much work I gotta do, this annoying thing that I'm dealing with, whatever, right? And then I'm like, okay, I have this box of things that I am paying attention to. What is missing from this box? Oh, drinking water. Bathroom breaks.
Eating.
Coming up
a lot this week.
Eating, right? Am I sleeping well? Am I paying attention to the way that I breathe? Am I paying attention, even going further than that, the quality of my breath? Because maybe I am breathing, but I'm like
shallow,
right?
Or
it's
fire
like
breath. We were talking about
breath
fire
or
breath.
long. And it's like, there are different elements and different kind of shapes that this comes with. And I have to be very specific to the moment and to my needs. What's functional for my needs right now in this one moment? And a lot of the times, like, I mean, no pressure, right? That's what I say all the time to my clients. Those are my two favorite words. No pressure. Like, brush that shit off, because if I need to think about how I can be functional within the next 5 minutes, that's what I'm going to fucking do. I'm not going to give myself a whole day because it's too much. So let's bring it back. What do I need to pay attention to right now for the next hour for me to be able to be functional? And then when that hour comes up, I'm going to move on. And this is a good practice, I think, for us to be able to pay attention to really kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah, for me, it's the language around it is bringing tenderness, right? How can you bring tenderness to the moment? You can be angry. You can have pain in your lower back. How can you bring tenderness to it? Can you send your breath there? Can you consider when was the moment that that tension or that pain showed up in the first place, right? You stubbed your toe, okay, and then there's pain for days. What were you thinking about in that moment? This is part of that dialogue. Like, this is the juicy stuff I want to give you, is like practice, 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 listening to how the texture changes, listening how the breath changes.
And I think too, like, God, I love this conversation. Every time we get together, it's just like so many things are like firing, guys. Like, you have no idea. But I think too, like, there's this kind of idea of like we were talking about, like layered awareness, right? So we were talking too about the idea of like comfortability of silence too.
Yeah.
And how silence actually comes with its own complicated layers, because we don't live in a silent world at all. Like, even if you're like in the middle of nowhere, like you will find a sound, right? Even if it's coming from nature. So there is sound enveloping everything all the time. And what is sound, guys? Sound is a vibration. So when we are awake, or even when we're asleep, when we're alive, right, there's constant vibration that's happening inside of our body that we can't hear.
No, there's input at all times.
Yeah, there's input at all times, right? And so the idea of kind of laying within your own version of silence.
Yeah.
So I was always excited about this, because I'm like, wait a second, silence isn't silent? Like, I'm like, there's things happening. Okay. Like, I can be here in a quiet room then, because now I can listen maybe to my heartbeat, or I can listen to the sound of my breath,
right?
Or I can listen to the air conditioning in the room or something, you know, because I think I'm sure you get this too with clients. Like, I can't sit in silence and meditate and listen to my body. Like, I just can't do that. You know, I got to be like on the go, and then it perpetuates that cycle of avoidance, right? And it's like, okay, don't be in silence, right?
Yeah. Let's
redefine that. You know, let's reframe that idea. And I think that, that's extremely powerful.
I think with all of it, right, you're speaking to choose to be curious.
Yeah.
Right. Be curious of everything. Part of tapping back into the body, tapping into silence, tapping into like, how do you respond in a movement practice is curiosity. Right. And then one of the quick things that we want to tap into is the importance of rest.
Yes.
Because I think we all have this experience of like, yeah, we go to bed. Do we rest? Do we sleep? Are our dreams insane? And we wake up and we feel completely disrupted. And one day blends into the next day, blends into the month, and I don't know what's happening. And all of a sudden that thing that's hurting, or that stomach thing that's like messing my stomach up, I don't even know when it started, because they're all coming together. So rest is not a joke. And rest is an aspect of the feminine, because in the place of rest, we are curious, we are creative, we allow space for pleasure. With pleasure comes passion and excitement and joy and celebration. And if you didn't rest, you wouldn't have any of it.
And also asking yourself, like, why is it so hard for you to rest? Like, what's going on that's kind of that's perpetuating the cycle where not only am I telling myself that I shouldn't rest, but that I don't have time, right? Because I think
I can't.
I can't, I just don't have time. You know, that's the number one excuse I think that we all kind of like cycle around with. And I'm guilty of it. Like, I've said those words. And for me, and I think for us, especially when we're having this conversation, we really need to reframe the idea of productivity.
Yeah.
You know, we are grained in a very young age in this society that productivity looks like going to school, getting a good job, working that 9 to 5, and then volunteering for those extra shifts, right? Because you got to look good, right? And then it's got to go on your resume. And so all these things kind of build up. And it's like, we got to climb that ladder. But it's like, guys, I don't know about you, but I don't know what the fuck is up on the top of that ladder. What if I don't want to be there? Right? Like, what are we going to do when we get there? Am I going to know when I reach the top of the ladder? Like, so it's like the rest can kind of be reframed where it's like, wait a second, in my place of rest, I can create this sense of creativity. I can foster it. I can find all of these ailments and somatic kind of releases in my body.
Yeah.
And what if that's really good for all of the other stuff that I'm trying to do?
And I mean, it even comes back to this whole idea of like, you don't have to work hard to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I get the most clients when I rest, when I listen to my body, and when I create. And really create, like make space, make that art, be messy. Because you make space. Like space is such a powerful thing. Because you don't know what's going to come in, right? You can literally speak into existence something.
Yeah.
Take a pause and then receive it, welcome it, and have it be easy.
And you can't do any of that stuff without the space.
Yeah.
You know, like even me, like I'm a yoga teacher. And so when I think of this concept, I think of the physical body as well. Like when I'm trying to cultivate physical strength in my muscles, I can't crunch everything and kind of come into a tiny ball and be really strong. I have to expand. I have to grow outward to create space and length for me, for my muscles to have like, oh, okay, now I can do our thing, right?
Yeah. So
it's like, if we don't create that space and we don't create that room, it's like, what we're saying to ourselves is like, that thing doesn't deserve space in my life. Like you're not allowed here.
Right. And that comes back to the, I'm too much. I'm too big.
Yeah.
I shouldn't speak.
Yeah. Let me make myself a little smaller.
Let me make myself smaller so I make everybody
comfortable.
Well, so I make other people comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm here to get bigger and bigger and bigger until I probably make everybody uncomfortable. That's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it goes. And I really want to come back to also is like, wherever we have, I love this, rest is an act of rebellion against what we've been. It
really is.
Yes. What we've been told. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it goes also back, circling back to that survival technique. Can I make it the next hour if I don't take like 3 or 5 breaths? You know, if I'm really examining this moment, like I need to be able to survive. And sometimes my rest, it doesn't have to, and I don't have to pressure myself for my day, for like me to have like a rest day, you know, like sometimes it gets overwhelming. Like, maybe a few minutes scattered throughout the day. Maybe if I give myself 2 minutes every hour or every 25 minutes or something like that, it can accumulate, right? And just allow me to survive today, because today is really intense, right? And
like for me, I like, if I'm working from home for the day, I will either eat outside or I will go in the hammock. I will literally go in the hammock for 20 minutes and reset my nervous system because I've been on the computer or taking meetings or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I really want to invite everybody also, like, where are you carrying stories in your body? Where is there tightness? When you take a breath, where does the breath not go? For a lot of people, you can breathe and you might feel like you're bumping against density in some joint or some vertebrae or something, right? Where is there something that you get to work through? I mean, part of this is like, yes, you can come and work with us and we would be so honored to support you. And I want you to start doing some of this with yourself, right? Like, where is there numbness? Where does breath get stuck? Where does movement get stuck? And then either sitting or laying or standing, like, can you bring awareness to it? Not everybody can tap in, like how many generations ago this one thing is that's sitting in your body. That's kind of what our gift is. And you can do it too. It takes practice. But like, can you go into, where did it come from? When did it start? Can I bring compassion to it? What would compassion look like? And what would you tell your child if they had this right now? Right? So pain in the womb, pain in the heart. Would you tell your child, it'll be okay, you just muscle through it? It's not that big a deal. Tomorrow's another day. No. You would treat it tenderly. You would be nourishing. You would say, you know what, go take a bath. I'll make dinner. You ask for help.
Yeah. And I don't encourage, and I would encourage people not to get stuck on the why. Don't get stuck on whys and hows when these things are coming up at first.
Right. It's in the expression and the release, right? And so
Yeah.
especially like right now, there's lots of fire, Aries moon. People are blowing up and blowing their top off. Well, I'm like, okay, lock yourself in your car, go for a drive. Yeah. Go scream underwater. Punch pillow. Yeah, even the lights agree. Like punch a pillow. So, I mean, the whole thing is like express safely so that it's fully coming out, because otherwise what's essentially happening is you're taking this aggression, encapsulating it, it's vibrating, oh, I'm going to stick it somewhere else and it's going to get trapped and we're going to have to deal with that again.
Yeah.
So with any emotion and any energy, you are really requesting it to come up and come out. So whether it's tears, yelling, your voice, your breath, but even journaling, like getting a thought out and doing a verbal vomit is really powerful, because then it's not staying in.
And when you're doing all of these things, right, really important to remember that aspect of forgiveness, because if I don't remember that aspect, whatever comes out can come out with align with judgment, like self-judgment, you know, like, oh, I'm gonna look silly, or this is stupid, you know what I mean? And we don't end up doing it, even though we're like in a room by ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's like,
where do we hold ourselves back?
Where do we hold ourselves back? And how can I allow my forgiveness to come forward and be invited to the party here?
Yeah. So does anybody have questions? Because you know, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
But this is our thing. But yeah, I think between feel the body, sense the body, express what's in the body, and come back to forgiveness, we come back to wholeness. We come back to, I'm allowed to be here. I'm allowed to take up space. And ultimately, like, I'm free.
And remember, we live in community on purpose, guys. Like, we use our community constantly. When my car breaks down, I do not fix my car. I take it to a mechanic. When I get sick, I go to the doctor, right? When I need all of these things, I don't do it myself. It's like, so when it comes to these things of the mind and all of these emotional bodies, we're like hard on ourselves. Like, we got to do it all on our own. No, there's so many people in the community that we can pull on to help us get through these moments and to even help us transmute them and understand them eventually.
Right.
So those how and why questions that we're yearning for, right? Maybe if we pull in our community, they'll find us.
Yeah. And getting that it's perfect. Like, everything is perfect in every moment, including your moments where it feels out of control. Because there's always an opportunity to learn something about yourself, your body, your heart, and what you want and what you get to have. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it has been a pleasure. And you can all find us on our websites or on IG. And we're here for questions, comments, sessions, all the good things. And we're just a small taste of this amazing community. Yeah. Come on in. Oh, Danny's coming back on.
Oh, you see me? Siri, what's up? Oh my gosh, that was just, you know, you touched on so many amazing things, and I feel like again, we can just go for hours on this subject alone. Are you guys offering like some different offerings that people can work more deeply with you?
Absolutely. I mean, I regularly offer free consultations and then sessions regularly in my Miami-based office. So I'm in the Grove. Yeah, in Miami.
Same. Regular sessions. I have sessions ranging from just therapy, like talk therapy, all the way through somatic therapy, which includes like movement, includes breath work, it includes sound healing, a lot of other stuff. So
do you do virtual clients as well? Are you guys taking people remotely?
I do. I see virtual.
Yeah, I definitely see people in person because the magic is in my fingers.
Oh, so yeah, I got it.
The medicine is in my hand. There's portals in my hands, and
there really are, guys.
No, I believe it. And I would love to see your chart and see like where that presents in your, because I always love to look for the little intuition and magic and stuff in people's like astrology. I'm always I can't help myself. I always talk about astrology, y'all. Not sorry.
It's all right. I'll give you all the, I mean, it's so funny. I'm like,
you're in the right place then.
I've got 4 or 5 houses in the 8th house of Sagittarius. I am the light in the death underworld.
Woo! Yes, I love that. Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Not sorry. And Kathy Rivera is going to come up next. She's got some breath work going on. Listen, y'all, if y'all want to keep following some more stuff from Ali and Maya, we have some, let's see, it's right here in the chat. Maya Amazing _LCSW. I love that handle. Yes. On Instagram, and wisdom _of_the_body.
Wisdom of the body, you'll find me.
Wisdom of the body with all the underscores, to find Ali on Instagram. And I really love the way you guys went all around it about learning how to be in your body, not just with the good feelings, but also sitting with the bad feelings. And I feel like one of the things you also touched on that was like really key, and again, I love how all of these sessions have been weaving together and building on each other, and sort of like this cross-functional training of sorts, where you're talking about not just your because we've been learning to build this tolerance for pain and for destruction of our own bodies, but can we build a tolerance for pleasure, for relaxation? Can we allow more pleasure and yumminess into our bodies? How much can we stand? How can we push that threshold for pleasure? Then we start getting into sex magic and all that other good stuff. But
no,
I mean, we can talk all day about that too.
Yeah, because then it's like, oh, how come we can't stay in the bath longer?
Yeah.
How come I can't have more wonderful juicy sex that brings out like my roar?
Yes. Exactly. And we should probably have a whole other thing just about that alone. Well, we got 3 more minutes before we go to Kathy. Thank y'all so much. And I'll see you in the other room.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.